The stars looked the same as they always did in the Kepler 442 system, cold and distant against the black of space. Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet move through their patrol route with practiced ease. Reptilian Commander had done this same patrol hundreds of times over the past decade. His green-scaled hands rested behind his back as he observed the tactical display showing 12 heavy cruisers and 36 support vessels spread across the system. The Galactic Dominion had ruled this sector for 300 years. No species had ever challenged their authority successfully. Zektar believed this would never change. His people, the Vorthok, were born warriors with tough scales and sharp claws. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved even more species. Idea that anyone could threaten them seemed impossible. "Admiral, all ships report normal status," said his tactical officer, a younger Vorthok with bright yellow eyes. "Sector 7 shows no unusual activity." Zektar nodded slowly. These patrol missions were routine but necessary. The Dominion maintained control through constant presence and overwhelming force. Any species that dared resist was crushed quickly and completely. This system of fear had worked perfectly for centuries. The bridge crew continued their duties in comfortable silence. Navigation checked their course, communications monitored fleet chatter, and sensors swept the empty space around them. Was exactly as it should be. Then space itself seemed to tear open. A massive tear in reality appeared directly in the center of the Dominion formation. Energy crackled around the edges of the portal as something enormous pushed through from another dimension. The bridge lights flickered as strange radiation washed over the fleet's sensors. "What is that thing?" Zektar demanded, his voice sharp. With surprise, the tactical officer stared at his displays in confusion. "Unknown vessel emerging from hyperspace, Admiral. I've never seen anything like it. A warship unlike anything in Dominion records slid through the portal." The vessel was huge, easily matching their largest dreadnoughts in size, but its design was completely alien to Dominion eyes. Where their ships were curved and organic-looking, this newcomer was all sharp angles and flat surfaces. Strange markings covered its dark hull, and energy readings made their sensors scream warnings. "Sir, the vessel's energy signature is off." Our charts reported the sensor operator, his voice filled with concern. "Their power output exceeds our flagship by 300%. Zektar felt his first moment of real unease in decades. The unknown ship sat motionless in space, apparently scanning their fleet. Its weapons were not visible, but something about its design suggested deadly purpose. On the bridge of the human warship UHS Defiance, Captain Jake Sullivan rubbed his tired eyes and studied the alien fleet surrounding his ship. He had been fighting a running battle against humanity's enemies for 8 months, jumping from system to system in search of safety. His crew was exhausted, his ship was damaged, and their supplies were running dangerously low. Report Sullivan said to his bridge crew. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Martinez looked up from her tactical station. 48 alien vessels in a standard patrol formation. "Their technology appears less advanced than ours, but they have us badly outnumbered. Any hostile moves?" Sullivan asked. "Not yet, Captain. They seem as surprised to see us as we are to see them," Martinez replied. "Chief Engineer Danny?" Wright's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, our jump drive is still cooling down from that last emergency jump. Need at least 2 hours before we can jump again." Sullivan nodded grimly. They were trapped here with an unknown alien fleet. His ship carried the last remnants of human military technology and possibly the only hope for humanity's survival. The experimental drive that had brought them here was their greatest achievement and their only escape route. "Open a communication channel," Sullivan ordered. The Dominion fleet had surrounded the human vessel in a loose circle, maintaining what they considered a safe distance. Admiral Zektar studied the tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The alien ship showed no fear despite being hopelessly outnumbered. "Admiral, they are transmitting on multiple frequencies," his communications officer reported. "Put it through," Zektar commanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the alien bridge. A human male sat in the captain's chair. flanked by other humans at various stations. Zektar had never seen anything like them before. They had no scales, no claws, and their skin was a strange pinkish color. Captain Sullivan looked directly at the camera. "This is Captain Jake Sullivan of the United Human Ship Defiance. We request safe passage through your space. We mean no harm to you or your people." Zektar listened to the translation with growing anger. These aliens dared to make demands in Dominion space. They showed no proper respect or fear. This was intolerable. "I am Admiral Zektar of the Galactic Dominion Third Fleet," he replied, his voice cold and threatening. "You have violated our sovereign territory. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Sullivan's expression hardened. He had dealt with aggressive aliens before during humanity's long retreat. "Admiral, we are simply passing through. Request resupply and repair facilities. Can pay for what we need." The human captain's directness infuriated Zektar further. In Dominion culture, such casual responses to authority were considered deeply insulting. Lesser species were expected to grovel when addressing their superiors. "You will surrender now or face the consequences," Zektar snarled, showing his sharp teeth. On the Defiance's bridge, the crew tensed as they watched the alien commander's aggressive display. Lieutenant Commander Martinez reported quietly to Captain Sullivan, "Sir, multiple contacts are powering up weapon systems." Sullivan closed his eyes for a moment. His crew had been through so much already. They had lost their home colonies, watched their friends die, and fled across the galaxy. Now they faced another fight with aliens who seemed determined to destroy them. "Chief Wright, what's our status?" Sullivan asked over the comm. "Shields are at full power, Captain. Point defense systems are online. Main guns are charged and ready." Sullivan looked at his crew. All these men and women had followed him through hell itself. They deserved better than to die in some pointless battle with aliens who could not understand their situation. "Admiral Zektar, we do not wish to fight you," Sullivan said into the communication channel. "We are refugees seeking shelter, not conquerors," but Zektar had already made his decision. In his mind, any species that refused to submit immediately was a threat that needed to be eliminated. The Dominion had built its empire on this simple principle. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," Zektar ordered his weapons officer. The moment of peaceful contact was over. The stage was set for a battle that would change the course of galactic history forever. The plasma bolt streaked across space like a green comet, its superheated energy bright enough to blind unprotected eyes. Admiral Zektar watched with satisfaction as his flagship's main gun fired the traditional warning shot. In 3 centuries of Dominion expansion, no species had ever ignored such a clear message of superior force. The bolt struck the human ship's forward section, creating a brilliant flash of light as it impacted some kind of energy barrier. Zektar expected to see hull damage, fires, and the obvious signs of a vessel in distress. Instead, the alien ship sat unchanged in space, apparently undamaged by weapons that could crack a moon. "Impossible," muttered the tactical officer. Plasma cannons should have melted through their hull on the Defiance's bridge. Captain Sullivan felt the ship shudder slightly as their electromagnetic shields absorbed the alien weapons energy. The defensive system had been designed to stop much more powerful attacks from humanity's true enemies. This plasma bolt was barely worth noticing. "Damage report," Sullivan called out. "Forward shields down to 98%, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Martinez. "No hull damage." Their weapons appeared to be plasma-based, and relatively primitive Chief Engineer Wright's voice came over the comm.
Captain there!"
"Attack triggered our automated defense protocols. The AI is requesting permission to activate point defense systems." Sullivan hesitated. Once those systems came online, there would be no hiding their technological capabilities. Had fired first, and his duty was to protect his crew and ship. "Granted," Sullivan said. Defensive measures only across the Defiance's hull. Dozens of small turrets emerged from hidden compartments. Each mount contained advanced targeting computers and rapid-fire kinetic weapons, designed to intercept incoming missiles and fighters. The system had been humanity's answer to swarm attacks from their enemies. Admiral Zektar watched in growing amazement as weapon systems appeared all over the alien vessel's surface. He had never seen defensive technology like this before.
"Oh, Dominion."
Ships relied on heavy armor and energy shields, not active point defense networks. "Launch fighters," Zektar ordered. "Let us test their defenses properly to squadrons of Dominion attack craft launched from the fleet's carriers." The pilots were experienced veterans who had fought dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. They approached the human ship in a standard attack formation, confident that their speed and numbers would overwhelm any. Defensive systems, the Defiance's point defense network, tracked the approaching fighters with mechanical precision. Advanced computers calculated intercept courses, wind, speeds, and target priorities in microseconds. When the alien craft entered effective range, the turrets opened fire, streams of tungsten rounds. Each one accelerated to tremendous velocity, reached out toward the incoming fighters. The Dominion pilots had never faced kinetic weapons before. Their tactics were designed to avoid plasma bolts and energy beams, not solid projectiles moving at several kilometers per second. The first fighter disintegrated as dozens of rounds tore through its hull. The second managed to fire a single missile. Before it too was destroyed, within 30 seconds, both squadrons had been eliminated with surgical precision. "By the ancestors," whispered Zektar's tactical officer. "They destroyed 24 fighters without taking a single hit." The admiral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His best pilots, flying the most advanced fighters in the Dominion fleet, had been swept aside like insects. What kind of species was he dealing with? Captain Sullivan watched the alien debris scatter across space and felt sick to his stomach. Those had been living beings with families and dreams, and now they were dead because of a misunderstanding. He had hoped to avoid bloodshed, but the aliens seemed determined to fight. "Sir, 2 more alien vessels are moving closer," Martinez reported. They appeared to be some kind of escort cruisers. The Dominion ships approached carefully, their crews nervous after witnessing the destruction of the fighter squadrons. Admiral Zektar had ordered them to test the alien vessel's close-range defenses, but the captains were having second thoughts about their mission. When the cruisers reached weapons range, they opened fire with everything they had: plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic torpedoes, all targeted the human ship simultaneously. The coordinated attack lit up space with deadly energy. The Defiance's shields flared as they absorbed the incoming fire. The electromagnetic barriers held firm against the energy weapons. While the point defense system intercepted most of the physical projectiles, a few torpedoes managed to get through, but they barely scratched the ship's armored hull. Commander Sarah Brooks, the ship's first officer, looked up from her damage control station. "Minimal damage, Captain. Your weapons are not designed to penetrate our defensive systems." Sullivan nodded grimly. The technological gap between humanity and these aliens was enormous. His ship could probably fight their entire fleet and win, but that would mean thousands of deaths. There had to be another way. "Target their weapons systems," only Sullivan ordered. "1 shot each. Let us show them what we can do without killing anyone." Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez, the weapons officer, selected targets on his tactical display. The main railgun system powered up with a low hum that could be felt throughout the ship. Magnetic coils charged with enormous amounts of energy, preparing to accelerate solid projectiles to incredible speeds. "Firing," Rodriguez announced. 2 tungsten slugs, each one weighing several tons, erupted from the Defiance's main guns. The magnetic acceleration system pushed them to 12% of light speed in less than a second. They crossed the distance to their targets almost instantly. The first slug punched through the alien cruiser's forward weapon array like it was made of paper. Kinetic energy tore apart plasma cannons and particle beam projectors, leaving a perfectly round hole through 3 decks of the ship. Emergency lights flickered on as atmosphere vented into space. The second projectile struck the other cruiser's missile launchers, destroying them completely and causing secondary explosions throughout the weapons bay. Both alien ships immediately stopped firing and began emergency maneuvers to get away from the terrifying human vessel. Admiral Zektar stared at the damage reports in stunned silence. Weapons that could punch clean through Dominion armor as if it did not exist. Defensive systems that made fighters and missiles useless. energy shields that laughed at their most powerful guns. What kind of nightmare had emerged from hyperspace? "Get me high command immediately," Zektar ordered. "Priority 1 transmission?" His communications officer worked frantically to establish contact with the Dominion capital. This was beyond anything a local fleet commander could handle. The Supreme Chancellor needed to know that they faced something unprecedented. On the human ship, Dr. Amy Chen worked at her science station, analyzing the alien communication frequencies and trying to build translation protocols. As the ship's xenobiologist, it was her job to understand new species they encountered. "Captain, I am picking up massive data transmissions from the alien fleet," she reported. "They appear to be sending detailed reports to some kind of central command." Sullivan rubbed his forehead tiredly. The aliens were calling for reinforcements, which meant more fighting and more deaths. His ship carried advanced technology that could revolutionize galactic warfare. But he had hoped to use it for protection, not conquest. "How long before their backup arrives?" he asked. Chen consulted her instruments. Based on their transmission, protocols, and the distance to their nearest major base, estimate 6 to 8 hours that gave them time to try diplomacy again. But Sullivan doubted the aliens would be any more reasonable than before. In his experience, species that shot first and asked questions later rarely changed their minds easily. Lieutenant Commander Martinez interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting something else. Energy signatures at the edge of the system." Sullivan felt ice form in his stomach. He recognized those readings from months of running battles across the galaxy. The enemy that had destroyed humanity's colonies had found them again. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. Martinez checked her readings twice before responding, "Yes, sir. Devourer signatures, multiple contacts. They will be here within hours." The situation had just become infinitely worse. Was his ship trapped? With a hostile alien fleet, but humanity's greatest enemy was approaching fast. Soon this system would become a battleground between 3 different species, and Sullivan doubted any of them would survive the encounter. He looked around his bridge, at the crew that had followed him across the galaxy. These brave men and women deserved better than to die in some pointless 3-way battle. There had to be a solution, some way to turn enemies into allies before it was too late. But first, he had to find a way to communicate with aliens who seemed to understand only force and submission. The clock was ticking, and time was running out for everyone in the Kepler 442 system. The emergency session of the Dominion High Council had been called within minutes of receiving Admiral Zektar's transmission. Supreme Chancellor Murgoth, a massive Vorthok with scarred scales and cold yellow eyes, stood before the holographic display showing the damaged ships in the Kepler 442 system. Around him, the other council members whispered among themselves in growing alarm. "Explain this again," Murgoth said, his voice like grinding stone. "Single alien vessel did this to our 3rd fleet." The hologram showed the 2 cruisers with perfectly round holes punched through their holes. The destroyed fighters were scattered debris. The surviving ships maintained a respectful distance from the mysterious human vessel. It was a scene that should have been impossible. "Yes," Supreme Chancellor replied, Admiral Zektar's image. "Their weapons technology is unlike anything we have encountered. Our shields and armor provide no protection against their kinetic projectiles." Council member Vostok, an elderly Vorthok diplomat, leaned forward. "Perhaps we should attempt negotiations. Their technology is so advanced. Maybe we can learn from them." Murgotha's head snapped toward the diplomat with predatory speed. "The Dominion does not negotiate with unknown species. We conquer or we destroy. There is no other way." The Supreme Chancellor had built his career on this simple philosophy. For 50 years, he had expanded Dominion territory through overwhelming force and brutal efficiency. Every species they encountered had eventually submitted or been eliminated. The idea of treating equals as anything other than future subjects was foreign to his nature. "What do we know about these aliens?" Murgoth asked. Admiral Kethrin, the Dominion's chief intelligence officer, activated another hologram. "They call themselves humans. Bipedal species, no visible natural weapons, relatively small and fragile. Their ship appears to be a military vessel, but we have detected no others in our territory. A scouting mission," then Murgoth concluded. They are testing our defenses before their main fleet arrives. The council members nodded in agreement. This explanation made sense to them. In their experience, advanced technology always meant aggressive expansion. They could not imagine a species with such weapons being anything other than conquerors. From his position at the far end of the council chamber, Admiral Corvex listened to the discussion with growing interest. He was the Dominion's most successful military commander, having conquered more worlds than any other officer in their history. His reputation for tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency was legendary throughout the galaxy. Supreme Chancellor, Corvex said, stepping forward. Request permission to lead a task force against this human vessel. Murgath studied the Admiral carefully. Corvex was younger than most senior officers, but his record spoke for itself. 23 successful campaigns, 47 worlds conquered, and not a single defeat in 15 years of service. What do you propose? Murgath asked. The 5th Battle Group, Corvex replied without hesitation. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 heavy cruisers, 32 destroyers, and full fighter support. Overwhelming force to compensate for their technological advantages. The Supreme Chancellor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This was the kind of response he understood. Approved. Destroy the alien vessel and bring me proof of their defeat. Admiral Corvex saluted and left the chamber immediately. He had a reputation to maintain and a new challenge to overcome. In his mind, no single ship could stand against the concentrated firepower of an entire battle group, regardless of their technology. Meanwhile, in the Kepler 442 system, Captain Sullivan stood in his ready room, staring out at the alien fleet through the viewport. His ship's long-range sensors had confirmed his worst fears. The energy signatures approaching the system belonged to at least 30 Devourer vessels, including several of their massive bioships. Chief Science Officer Pete Johnson entered the room carrying a datapad. Captain, I have completed my analysis of the sensor readings. Sullivan turned to face the scientist. Pete was one of humanity's leading experts on Devourer technology, having studied their weapons and tactics for years during the long retreat from human space. Give me the bad news, Sullivan said. The approaching fleet includes at least 3 Harvest-class bioships, Pete reported. Each one is capable of consuming an entire planet's biomass within days. If they establish a foothold in this galaxy, billions of innocent beings will die. Sullivan nodded grimly. The Devourers were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. They were not interested in conquest or territory. They consumed all organic life they encountered, using the biomass to grow larger and reproduce. Entire star systems had been stripped clean, leaving only dead worlds behind. How long do we have? Sullivan asked. 6 hours? Maybe 7, Pete replied. But Captain, there is something else. I've been analyzing the communication frequencies used by these Dominion aliens. Their technology shows clear signs of stagnation. Sullivan raised an eyebrow. Meaning what they have been the dominant power in this region for centuries, Pete explained. Their weapons and tactics have not evolved because they have faced no serious challenges. They are completely unprepared for an enemy like the Devourers. The captain walked back to the viewport and stared out at the alien fleet. Those ships contained thousands of living beings who had no idea what was coming. Their rigid military doctrine and outdated technology would be useless against biomechanical enemies that adapted and evolved in real time. What are our options? Sullivan asked. Pete consulted his datapad. We could jump out of the system before the Devourers arrive. Our drive will be ready in 4 hours and leave these aliens to die, Sullivan said quietly. They fired on us first, Captain. They made their intentions clear. Sullivan knew Pete was right from a purely logical standpoint. The Dominion had shown nothing but hostility since the moment they arrived. These aliens would probably enslave or kill every human they could find if given the chance. Running away was the smart choice, but Jake Sullivan had not become a starship captain by making the smart choice. He had joined the military to protect innocent life regardless of species. The idea of abandoning an entire galaxy to the Devourers went against everything he believed in. A soft chime announced someone at his door. Come in, Sullivan called. TOC Commander Sarah Brooks entered the ready room, her expression serious. Captain, we have been monitoring Dominion communications. They are sending a much larger fleet to destroy us. How large? Sullivan asked. Nearly 50 ships, including their heaviest units, Brooks replied. They will arrive in approximately 5. R. Sullivan almost laughed at the cosmic irony of their situation. The Dominion was sending a massive fleet to destroy the one ship that might be able to help them survive what was coming. Meanwhile, the Devourers approached with the intention of consuming every living thing in the system. Sarah, I need your honest opinion, Sullivan said. Can we take on 50 Dominion ships and survive? Brooks considered the question carefully. Our technology is superior, but they have numbers and local knowledge. It would be a close fight, and we would take heavy damage and then face the Devourers while our ship is crippled, Sullivan added. Exactly, Brooks confirmed. Sullivan made his decision. Open a channel to the Dominion flagship. It is time to try diplomacy again. Brooks looked skeptical. Captain, they do not seem interested in talking, then we will have to make them interested, Sullivan replied. Get me Dr. Chen and Lieutenant Rodriguez. I have an idea. A few minutes later, the 3 officers joined Sullivan in the ready room. Amy Chen had been working on translation protocols, while Tony Rodriguez was preparing for the coming battle. Both looked tired but determined. Doctor, how is your progress with their language? Sullivan asked. Getting better, Captain Chen replied. Their grammar is relatively simple, but their cultural concepts are difficult to translate. They seem to view any form of negotiation as a sign of weakness that matches what we have observed, Sullivan said. Tony, I need you to prepare a demonstration. Rodriguez looked confused. What kind of demonstration? Sir Sullivan walked to his desk and activated a holographic display showing the Kepler 442 system. We are going to show them exactly what is coming and why they need our help. He pointed to the outer edge of the system, where the Devourer fleet was approaching. In 6 hours, this system will be under attack by an enemy that makes our little disagreement look like a playground argument. Brooks understood immediately. You want to warn them about the Devourers? More than that, Sullivan said. I want to show them what Devourer bioships do to inhabited planets. Maybe if they understand the real threat, they will listen to reason. Chen nodded slowly. It might work, Captain. Even aggressive species usually respond to existential threats. Rodriguez was less optimistic. What if they think we are working with these Devourers? What if they believe this is some kind of trick? Sullivan had considered that possibility. Then we fight both fleets and probably die. But if we do nothing, the Devourers will consume this entire galaxy. Within a few years, the room fell silent. As the officers contemplated their options, they were exhausted from months of running battles. Their ship was far from home. They faced impossible odds, no matter what they chose to do. But they were human, and humans had a long history of standing up to impossible odds when innocent. Admiral Korvex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. His 5th battle group had arrived in perfect formation, 47 ships arranged in the classic Dominion battle formation that had conquered 100 worlds. 3 massive dreadnoughts formed the center, their heavy plasma cannons capable of cracking continents. Around them, cruisers and destroyers created overlapping fields of fire while fighters swarmed like angry insects. Admiral, the alien vessel remains in the same position, reported his tactical officer. They have made no attempt to flee. Korvex studied the human ship with professional interest. It looked small compared to his dreadnoughts, but he had read Admiral Zektar's reports. This vessel had destroyed 2 squadrons of fighters and damaged 2 cruisers without taking a single hit. Underestimating it would be a fatal mistake. Maintain maximum engagement range, Korvex ordered. I want to test their defenses before we close distance on the bridge of the Defiance. Captain Sullivan watched the alien fleet deploy with growing concern. The Dominion had learned from their previous encounter, keeping their ships spread out to avoid concentrated fire. Their formation was textbook perfect, designed to bring maximum firepower to bear while minimizing casualties. Impressive, commented Commander Brooks. Their tactics are sound. Even if their technology is outdated, Lieutenant Commander Martinez looked up from her tactical station. Captain, I count 3 dreadnought-class vessels, 12 heavy cruisers, and 32 destroyers. Total firepower is approximately 15 times what we faced before and the Devourers. Sullivan asked. Chief Science Officer Pete Johnson answered from his station. 2 hours out and closing fast. One count, 31 bioships, including several I've never seen before. Sullivan closed his eyes for a moment. His attempt to warn the Dominion about the approaching threat had failed completely. They had dismissed his transmission as propaganda and lies, refusing to believe that anything could threaten their galactic empire. Now they would all face the consequences of that arrogance. All hands, this is the Captain Sullivan, announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to engage a superior enemy force. Our mission is not conquest or glory. We fight to protect innocent life from a threat they cannot comprehend. Do your duty, Admiral Corvex had heard enough? The human captain's words only confirmed his suspicions that this was the advanced scout for an invasion fleet. The references to protecting innocent life were obviously meant to confuse and demoralize his crews. All ships opened fire, Corvex commanded. The 5th battle group erupted in coordinated violence. Hundreds of plasma cannons fired simultaneously, creating a wall of superheated energy that raced toward the human vessel. Particle beams added their deadly light to the barrage. While thousands of missiles launched from every ship in the fleet, the attack was so massive that it lit up space like a small sun. No ship in Dominion history had ever survived such concentrated firepower. Admiral Corvex expected to see the alien vessel vaporized instantly. Instead, the human ship's electromagnetic shields flared to life, creating a bubble of distorted space around the vessel. The plasma bolts struck the barrier and dissipated. Harmlessly, their energy absorbed and redirected. The particle beams scattered like light hitting a prism, while the point defense system intercepted thousands of missiles with mechanical precision. Impossible, whispered Corvex's tactical officer. Nothing can withstand that much firepower, but the Defiance not only survived the barrage, it began to advance. Captain Sullivan had ordered his ship to move directly toward the enemy formation, a move that baffled every Dominion commander. In their experience, outnumbered vessels tried to maintain distance and use superior speed to avoid engagement. They are coming straight at us, reported the navigation officer, his voice filled with disbelief. Admiral Corvex felt his first moment of doubt. These humans were not following any tactical doctrine he understood. Their behavior suggested either supreme confidence or complete insanity, and he was not sure which possibility was worse. Concentrate fire on their forward sections, Corvex ordered. Focus everything on overwhelming their shields. The Dominion fleet adjusted their targeting, pouring everything they had into the human ship's bow. The electromagnetic barriers flickered and sparked under the assault, but they held firm. The Defiance closed range with steady determination. Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez sat at his weapons station, waiting for the captain's order. The main railgun system was charged and ready, with targeting solutions calculated for a dozen enemy vessels. His hands hovered over the firing controls as the range closed to optimal distance. Fire, Sullivan commanded. The Defiance's main guns spoke with the voice of accelerated thunder. 4 tungsten slugs, each weighing several tons, erupted from the magnetic acceleration system at 12% of light speed. They crossed the distance to their targets in less than a second, striking with the force of nuclear weapons. The first projectile hit a Dominion cruiser amidships, punching completely through the vessel and exiting the far side. The kinetic energy transfer tore the ship apart from the inside, causing catastrophic structural failure. Emergency lights flickered briefly before the cruiser broke in half. The second slug struck a destroyer's engine compartment, triggering a metantimatter explosion that vaporized the entire aft section. The third and fourth rounds found their marks on 2 more cruisers, leaving both ships crippled and burning in less than 5 seconds. The human vessel had eliminated 4 ships and demonstrated firepower that made mockery of Dominion defensive technology. Admiral Corvex stared at the tactical display in growing horror as damage reports flooded his communications. Sir, the Relentless is gone, reported his tactical officer. The conquering storm has lost all power. The Blade of Victory is venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Corvex had fought dozens of battles across the galaxy. But he had never seen anything like this. The human ship was advancing steadily through his formation, its point defense network creating an impenetrable barrier against fighters and missiles. Every few seconds, those terrible main guns would fire again, eliminating another Dominion vessel with surgical precision. "All ships, focus fire on that vessel," Korvax ordered desperately. "Everything you have of the remaining ships of the 5th Battle Group poured their full firepower into the advancing human ship. Plasma cannons overheated from continuous firing, while missile tubes emptied their magazines in desperate attempts to overwhelm the alien defenses. The space around the Defiance became a hellstorm of deadly energy, but the human shields held, and the point defense system continued its mechanical slaughter of incoming projectiles. Chief Engineer Danny Wright worked frantically at his station, rerouting power and managing heat buildup as the defensive systems operated at maximum capacity. "Shields holding at 70%, Wright reported. Point defense ammunition at 60%. We can maintain this rate of fire for another 10 minutes." Captain Sullivan nodded grimly. His ship was winning the battle, but at a terrible cost in lives. Each destroyed Dominion vessel represented hundreds of dead aliens who could have been allies against the real threat approaching the system. Captain called out Pete Johnson from his science station. "The Devourers have entered the outer system. They will be in weapons range in 30 minutes. Sullivan made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Target their propulsion systems only," he ordered Rodriguez. "Disable them. Do not destroy them." The weapons officer looked confused. "Sir, those aliens will need their ships to fight what is coming," Sullivan explained. "We cannot win this alone," Lieutenant Commander Martinez understood immediately. "Captain, if we disable their engines, they will be sitting ducks when the Devourers arrive. Then we better hope they listen to reason this time," Sullivan replied. The Defiance's targeting systems switched from lethal to non-lethal solutions. Instead of aiming for command centers and weapon systems, the railguns now targeted engine compartments and propulsion units. The next salvo crippled 3 more Dominion ships without killing their crews. Admiral Korvax watched his fleet disintegrate. Around him, with growing desperation, half his ships were either destroyed or disabled, while the human vessel continued its relentless advance. His tactical officers were reporting impossible things: weapons that fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds, defensive systems that made their best fighters obsolete, and shields that laughed at concentrated plasma fire. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the alien vessel," his communications officer reported. "Put it through," Korvax said, his voice hollow with defeat. Captain Sullivan's image appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but not triumphant. "Admiral Korvax, you need to listen to me very carefully. In 25 minutes, this system will be under attack by an enemy that makes our battle look like a minor disagreement." Korvax wanted to dismiss the humans' words as lies, but the evidence of their technological superiority was scattered across space in the form of his destroyed fleet. "What enemy?" he asked. "We call them Devourers," Sullivan replied. "They consume all organic life they encounter. They have already destroyed our home colonies and chased us across the galaxy." The space around the Defiance was filled with the wreckage of Admiral Korvax's once mighty fleet. Twisted metal and debris drifted between the surviving ships, a testament to the devastating power of human weapons technology. But Captain Sullivan took no satisfaction in the victory. Every piece of wreckage represented lives lost, beings who could have been fighting alongside them against the real enemy. "Deploy rescue shuttles," Sullivan ordered. "Get our people out there to help survivors." Commander Brooks looked up from her station with surprise. "Captain, they were trying to kill us just minutes ago, and now they are wounded beings who need help," Sullivan replied firmly. "We are not conquerors, Sarah. We are the last remnants of humanity, and we will act like it across the human ship." Medical teams prepared for the largest rescue operation in their recent memory. Dr. Amy Chen coordinated triage procedures while engineering teams prepared cutting tools and emergency life support equipment. The crew worked with quiet efficiency, driven by their captain's moral example. Admiral Korvax watched from his damaged flagship as small human shuttles moved between the disabled Dominion vessels. His tactical officer reported that the aliens were actually rescuing survivors, providing medical aid to wounded crew members, and offering emergency supplies to ships with damaged life support systems. "They are helping us," the tactical officer said, his voice filled with confusion. "After we attacked them, they are helping us. Corvex had fought hundreds of battles across the galaxy, but he had never encountered behavior like this. In Dominion culture, defeated enemies were enslaved or executed. The concept of showing mercy to those who had tried to kill you was completely foreign to their military doctrine. One of the human shuttles approached the Eternal Dominion, its pilot requesting permission to dock. Corvex hesitated for a moment, then gave his approval. If the humans wanted to kill him, they could have done it easily during the battle. The shuttle bay doors opened to admit a small craft carrying a human medical team. Dr. Chen led the group, her arms full of emergency medical supplies and portable life support units. She moved through the damaged Dominion ship with professional efficiency. Treating wounded crew members without regard for species or allegiance, Corvex found her working on his chief engineer, a badly injured Vorthok who had been caught in an engine room explosion. The human doctor worked carefully with alien anatomy she had never seen before, using her medical knowledge to adapt treatment procedures on the spot. "You are saving him," Corvex observed. Dr. Chen looked up briefly. "That is what doctors do." "Admiral, we save lives, even the lives of your enemies," Corvex asked. "Especially the lives of our enemies," Chen replied, returning to her work. "That is how enemies become friends," the Admiral watched in fascination as the human doctor stabilized his engineer's condition and moved on to the next patient. Her actions challenged everything he believed about warfare and conquest. How could a species this advanced and powerful show such compassion to defeated foes? On the bridge of the Defiance, Chief Science Officer Pete Johnson monitored the approaching Devourer fleet with growing alarm. Long-range sensors showed details that made his blood run cold. The bioships were larger than anything humanity had encountered before, their organic hulls pulsing with malevolent energy. "Captain, the Devourer fleet has entered weapons range of the outer planets," Johnson reported. "I am detecting massive energy discharges." Sullivan turned to the main screen, which showed the distant flashes of weapons fire near the system's fourth planet. The Devourers were not interested in military targets or strategic objectives. They would consume everything organic they found, starting with any inhabited worlds in the system. "Are there colonies on that planet?" Sullivan asked. "Lieutenant Commander." Martinez checked her tactical database. According to Dominion records, it has a population of 12 million. It's mostly agricultural settlements. Sullivan closed his eyes. 12 million innocent beings were about to die because he had failed to convince the Dominion of the threat they faced. The sound of their deaths would haunt him for the rest of his life. Captain called out the communications officer. "Admiral, Corvex is requesting to speak with you." The main screen flickered to show the interior of the damaged Dominion flagship. Admiral Corvex stood in the center, his uniform torn and his scales darkened with soot. Around him, human medical personnel worked alongside Dominion crew members to treat the wounded. "Captain Sullivan," Corvex said, his voice strained with exhaustion and something that might have been respect. "Your people are helping mine, even after we attacked you." "I do not understand why, because that is who we are," Sullivan replied simply. "We protect life, regardless of species." Corvex nodded slowly. "I have been monitoring the energy discharges from the outer system. Something is attacking our colonies," the Devourers, Sullivan confirmed. "They will consume every living thing on that planet, then move to the next one. Eventually, they will strip this entire galaxy clean of life." The Dominion Admiral stared at the tactical display showing the approaching bioships. His sensors were finally getting clear readings of the enemy vessels, and what he saw defied comprehension. Ships that seemed to be grown rather than built, hulls that pulsed like living tissue, and weapon systems that defied every law of physics he knew. "How do we fight them?" Corvex asked quietly. "Together," Sullivan replied. "Your ships have numbers and local knowledge. My ship has advanced weapons and experience fighting these things. Separately, we all die. Together we might have a chance." Corvex made the hardest decision of his military career. Everything in his training and culture screamed against cooperating with aliens who had just humiliated his fleet. But the evidence was clear. The Devourers represented a threat that dwarfed any previous enemy the Dominion had faced. "What do you need from us?" Corvex asked. "Coordinate your remaining ships with our tactical systems," Sullivan replied. "Share your sensor data and follow our targeting priorities. Most importantly, do not try to engage the bioships in close combat. They adapt to your weapons and tactics in real time. Commander Brooks worked frantically to establish communication links with the surviving Dominion vessels. Her team created a joint tactical network that allowed human and alien ships to share, targeting data and coordinate their attacks. It was a technological marvel accomplished in minutes, something that should have taken months of careful preparation. The first Devourer bioships entered the inner system, like a plague of living nightmares. Their organic hulls writhed with alien patterns, while weapon pods that looked like tumors erupted from their surfaces. Energy readings showed power levels that exceeded anything in Dominion or human databases. All ships, this is Captain Sullivan, the human commander announced over the joint communication network. The enemy vessels are biological constructs. They regenerate damage and adapt to your weapons. Focus fire on their propulsion organs and avoid prolonged engagement. Admiral Corvex relayed the orders to his surviving ships, adding his own tactical observations. Maintain formation and support the human vessel. I've experienced fighting these things. The battle began at extreme range, both fleets firing everything they had at the approaching bioships. Human railguns sent tungsten slugs screaming across space, while Dominion plasma cannons added their energy to the barrage. The combined firepower was impressive, but the Devourer ships absorbed the damage and continued their advance. They are adapting to our weapons, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from his station. Each hit does less damage than the last. Sullivan had expected this. The Devourers learn from every encounter, evolving their defenses to counter new threats. Humanity had learned to fight them through constant innovation and tactical flexibility, never using the same approach twice. Switch to explosive rounds, Sullivan ordered. Detonate them inside their hulls before they can adapt. The Defiance's ammunition fabricators worked at maximum capacity, converting raw materials into specialized projectiles designed to penetrate bioship armor and explode internally. It was a tactic that had worked before, but the Devourers would adapt to it quickly. The first salvo of explosive rounds punched deep into the lead bioship before detonating. The creature's hull ruptured, in dozens of places, spilling organic fluids into space. But even as it died, its companions were already adapting, growing thicker armor and internal barriers to contain future explosions. Admiral Corvex watched in horror as the wounded bioship began to regenerate, its hull flowing like liquid to seal the breaches. Within minutes, it was fully healed and more dangerous than before. By the ancestors, he whispered. What are these things, Death? Sullivan replied grimly. They are death itself, given form and purpose. The battle raged across the Kepler 442 system as three different species fought for survival. Human technology clashed with Devourer bioweapons, while Dominion ships provided covering fire and tactical support. It was a desperate alliance forged in the crucible of mutual destruction, with former enemies working together against a threat that could consume them all. Chief Engineer Wright pushed the Defiance's systems beyond their design limits, promoting power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. Dr. Chen worked in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members and preparing for the casualties.